product introduced even when it wasn't necessary. They're now sticking with their older, more reliable products for a longer period of time and supporting them better.
Good. Question number 7. This is one we haven't talked about before. It's easy. What are the key elements of a manager's information network? Pals in the industry, trade magazines.
I think we all need to go to an annual meeting, whether it's a hospital administrators meeting, clinical chemist meeting, a medical technologist meeting. Talk with your friends, people you went to school with. Find out what's going on. Find out what new equipment's available. Find out what other people are doing. Don't live in a vacuum.
Okay, good. Is this part of the process of, yesterday we talked about stepping back and taking a look at not just your laboratory from the micro point of view, but your laboratory from a macro standpoint. Can you elaborate on that? Do DRGs, the capital squeeze, make us stand back and look at ourselves in a different way?
With DRGs, you can no longer look at being all things to all people and need to step back and find out where you can get the biggest bang for your buck.
All right. Tell me about the hospital team again. Who are they? What can they bring to the party when you go to buy these?
Each member of the hospital team has to bring a different component. The pathologist, the clinical chemist, the laboratory manager, the people from the financial services office, and the medical technologist all bring a different perspective on why you need a particular test or to offer a particular service in the hospital.
Other than just being a nice guy, why should you really give a damn if you think you can get a piece of equipment through without it?
I think each of them bring a different viewpoint, whether it be scientific, medical, personnel. Each individual needs to have an overall patient care plan. The whole hospital works as a team to provide a better service for the patient.
Is there any political benefit, just down and dirty political benefit to going out and making these people involved?
When you have an army of 30 people sitting in the administrator's office clamoring for a particular instrument, it's difficult to say no.
Right on. Okay, way to go. Oh, we will, yes. Let's talk about the benefits methodology real quick. You have some assessment. You go out and get some information. You find out where you need help. Then, if you're going to go get help, where is the equipment and product life cycle, that kind of thing. Just sort of hit the road with that. Let's just start talking about the methodology. Where you start. You talked about it over there. You know you're going to need a certain piece of equipment. So what do you do?
Well, in each hospital, the equipment obviously doesn't last forever, and we all need to replace our equipment. About a year in advance, go out to your different networking places, whether it be an annual seminar, friends, neighbors, people you went to school with, and say, what's out there? Once you've determined what's in the available equipment, talk to the vendors, find out what they have up and coming. We need to...
That's okay. See, don't worry about that. I can help you along with that one, too. We're implying that, I think. Okay. You talked... Let's stop tape for a second. You talked over there. All right, let's talk about either everybody's equipment or nobody's equipment. Please. And tell me about the fact that this thing is going to break down next year. What are you going to do?
The product life cycle, many times a piece of equipment is about to break down and you know that you've had excessive repairs and you're going to go buy a new piece of equipment. Much of the purpose of making a proposal like this is to determine whether the 5 or 6 or 7 pieces of equipment that are available are which one's the best for you. And whether it could be, and we spoke earlier about different pieces of equipment, whether it's a Kodak instrument or an Abbott instrument, a Technicon, Beckman. Every vendor has a particular, say, an electrolyte analyzer in this particular example. Which one of those electrolyte analyzers is the best for your hospital? And you need to go through both a technical as well as a financial assessment to come up with the best decision. Because your administrator doesn't know that there are 7 or 8 instruments. He just knows whichever one you propose and how that's going to meet the needs of the patient.
Okay. Do that same thing to me this time. Mention all the equipment again. At this time, tell it to me with your hand.
Okay.
Use your hand. Okay. You know that your electrolyte or your CDC or whatever that thing is called is going to break down next year. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there that we're talking to is facing that problem. What the hell are you going to do?
Each piece of equipment has a product life cycle, and many times you find yourself with excessive repairs getting to the end of the life cycle. This proposal needs to look in terms of the 5 or 6 vendors that are out there providing a new service for you, or enhancement of service, or a replacement of service. And you need to look at whether it's Abbott or Technicon or Beckman or whoever who's providing an electrolyte analyzer, Kodak. They all provide a good service. They're all reliable companies. Which one's best for your hospital? Which one provides you with the package that you want to present to your administrator? And you need to have the full members of the team, the physician, the chemist, the technologist, the laboratory manager, the financial analyst. Each of them need to have an integral part in the preparation and presentation of what you need to provide the quality care for the patient.
Okay, you've got, okay, what?
That means that, first of all, to move on,
This thing, you can call it big as you want. Tell that whole story again, tell it shorter. Roll it. So,
Once you come to the end of a product life cycle and you have excessive repairs, you need to talk with each of the different vendors who provide, let's say in this particular case, an electrolyte analyzer. You need to find out what's out on the market, network with your contemporaries, and get the team together in the hospital to make a good analysis and presentation to the administrator so that you can acquire that analyzer.
how is the vendor, there's 6 or 7 guys out there providing basically a similar technology. How's the vendor going to make a difference to you?
Many times the vendor will make a difference in that you've had a good experience, they're reliable, they have fast turnaround time on the repairs, they have quality reagents. Most of the time, if someone's been in business as long as many of the major vendors have, they're the place to go to purchase your equipment. They're going to be around after you have it, a year down the road, 2 years down the road.
Okay, good.
any other time.
Yeah,
I think it's important for me to come up why people should take the course or study the course.
exactly.
What is it?
Okay. As a matter of fact, let's pause here for a second. You might want to go back up and tell you not only...
Wait, where's Kermit?
Of Allison. Gary's for this. What do you want him to get out of the videotape?
I think that each of the individuals needs to look at where each piece of equipment fits into the overall hospital. They need to look at what the impact of costs, whether it be labor costs or capital costs, and they need to figure out that the physicians are getting a better service, which provides an earlier discharge.
Okay. Tell it to me again with different framing and use your
Okay. We need to look in terms of the overall impact to the hospital. How does a piece of equipment
Don't use
fit?
your elbows. Sit back in your chair.
I was
Right.
told I'm not supposed to sit back in the
Don't
chair.
worry
Okay,
about
okay.
that. You just have to listen to me when you're on.
Okay.
No, that's
We-
okay. Just-
okay.
I think you need to free up your arms. Your elbows are like there, and it's just not happening.
We need to look in terms of 3 components. One is how does it fit into the overall aspect of the hospital? What are the impacts of cost, whether it be reagent cost, salary cost? We need to look in terms of what it does for the physician and the patient, how we can provide an earlier discharge and a better diagnostic tool.
Okay. Keep your eyes on me. You dart over towards the lens, and it doesn't work. Okay. This isn't the most deadly topic in the world either. I mean, why is it important for these guys to go through this? They got everybody out there has a sense of humor too.
The hospitals have a limited number of dollars, and I think the laboratory has a very important role in the hospital. And if you can learn to do a proposal like this, if you can learn to get and fulfill the laboratory needs, your hospital provide better patient care and have a better hospital.
Okay. What does it mean to that person personally? Is there a real danger that the guy who can't do this is going to be out?
I think that each of us wants to take pride in where we work. I think each of us want to be happy with the kinds of services that our laboratory wants. I think we're all professionals, and I think that if you can make a good proposal and a good presentation, that's what you need to make your hospital a good hospital. I think professional pride, I think accountability, I think the changes in overall hospitals and the way we provide patient care is important. And I think the laboratory is a very integral part of that whole process.
Okay, pause.
Sitting here is that they're unable.
Correct. Go ahead, Tom.
Many laboratorians are unable to do this. And what happens is the deterioration of the laboratory and services deteriorate for patient care. The individuals in the laboratory need to learn how to do a financial proposal. They need to know how to do an analysis that accounts for the financial as well as the patient care aspects of their job.
Why?
Why is it important?
Or no, follow up what they said, like, why is it not such a difficult task?
Very easy task. The vendor will help you. Your financial officer will help you. You've got all the help in the world. We need to have balanced capital equipment acquisitions throughout the hospital. You can't buy everything for radiology. You can't buy everything for the operating room. You need to have an overall comprehensive program. You need to have a full laboratory service. The vendor will help you, and the course book will help you, and Danielle's name's right there on the bottom of it.
No. Oh, I thought you. Might not be familiar with it. Might put them off. Right. On bars, yeah. That might put them off and say that that isn't. It isn't. Let's.
Present value, return on investment.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Net present value, whatever that. Anything that you think. Anything that you think that they might not know. Tell me about it.
Net present value, return on investment, sinking funds, bond ratings. I gotta come up with a few more here.
That's all right. Change your framing. Jerry. Keep thinking about it. More than bond ratings. I mean, even I understand bond ratings.
Depreciation, payback,
Okay.
assets, liabilities.
Okay. Put a string of them together for me again.
Present value, depreciation, return on investment, present value.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Okay. Where's
See,
the
none of
next
these are strange to me, and I'm trying to think of one. Which ones don't you know how big?
Okay. Tell me why there is an approach to financial analysis that the guys out there can comprehend, and it isn't threatening, it isn't a pain in the ass. It can be done.
Finance is no different from science. You take a formula, you plug in the numbers, and you come out with an answer.
Change your framing. Did you derive this document with that in mind?
This document was derived to be a simple step-by-step analysis of plugging in numbers and coming out with a financial justification for the administrator to buy a piece of equipment.
Change your framing. Do they need to know a certain vocabulary in order to understand, in order to really understand what's going on? It can't be just, I mean, even if you're going to operate from a cookbook, there's certain techniques you have to know.
In order to, in every field there's a vocabulary that's necessary, and you need to learn particular terms so you can talk in terms of those individuals who are approving the equipment. You can't talk like a scientist and have a business individual understand you and grant the wishes that you need to have granted.
Finish that statement off then. If you can't talk like a scientist to a financial person,
Then you should talk like a business person to a business person. Whether you like doing it or not doesn't matter. The fact that in order to get what you need, it's necessary.
okay, good. Pause for a second. Oh, I know what it. That doesn't look like you want it.
Sure, I'm ready.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Roll on it.
The budget process has to take place many times at least a year in advance, and you need to determine the kind and type of equipment that you want, put in a dollar amount, and then do your site visits, and then do your financial analysis as you get closer and you narrow down the number of instruments that you want to acquire.
And change your framing. Once you've narrowed that down, what do you do then?
Once you narrow it down to 2 or 3 vendors, it's very important that you then meet with your financial services people to come up with an economic model you can present the administrator.
Okay, change your framing, Gary. Once you've done that, what do you have to know in order to ask the vendor intelligent questions and get the kind of responses that will help you put together a winning proposal?
In the course book, there's a series of questions that you need to ask the vendor, which deal with all aspects of their service, as well as whether they can support the piece of equipment and an assistance from them in providing financial data.
Okay. Pause for a second.
I think what we're talking in terms of is scientific people. Scientific people need to talk in business terms. The business individuals who are granting you your wishes only understand business terms. We provide you in the course book with an analysis of finance and a way of justifying your capital equipment purchases.
Okay, say that. Give me that statement again, but you don't have to refer to the book. Okay, you don't have to actually touch it because it's looking awkward. That change your framing, Gary. All right, tell me that again about the book.
The course book is important because it provides a very simple document, simple series of forms that allow you to take your administrator, a finished financial proposal, and justify that piece of equipment that you need to provide a good quality patient care.
Isn't there another benefit? Don't you learn something in the process?
You learn to take what was previously a scientific analysis and put it in terms of business. You learn to define what present value is, what depreciation is. You need to be able to put it in a very simple, straightforward package, and this provides you with that.
Okay. In using the worksheets and going through the glossary of terms and going through the methodology, though, don't you bring something to yourself that you didn't have before?
You bring an analysis or an ability to analyze in business terms, where maybe previously you looked in terms of scientific or technical terms. Now you finally bring the business aspects to the table. You need to communicate with your administrator in terms that he understands in order for you to get the equipment that you need.
Do you think that there's anything, and without being facetious, anything in terms of enlightenment that can be described there? That is, if you learn business procedures, aren't you also going to tell yourself something about your job and where you fit in and all that kind of stuff?
As money gets tighter and as the hospitals need to cut back on costs, you need to be able to describe to the administrator why the library, why the laboratory is a viable component of the hospital, why he needs a full-service laboratory department.
Okay. But take it even out of that context and put it in the sense that, don't you learn something, doesn't the guy learn something about himself or learn something about his business that he didn't know before that goes beyond just getting the piece of equipment once again?
Too many times we focus primarily on the scientific when we as individuals need to grow and learn business terms and learn to deal with big business and learn to acquire those things that we need to provide a better service.
What does it take to find that out? How much time is involved in learning that? How long is it going to take somebody to go through an analysis like you laid forth, the methodology?
I think we're all bright. I don't think it'll take any time at all, but I think it's almost sine qua non, it's without exception that we need to put together an overall financial package. You'll learn a lot about your own personal finances through this. Many of us go out to buy a car and don't give the kind of thought we need to our own personal lives. I think this can take us both from a hospital view over to a personal view and learn some basic finance, learn something about our own finances.
Okay. Tell me how it might also impact, if possible, other aspects of being a manager. It's like having a humanities degree. That brings something to you as a person that might be hard to put your finger on.
The key to management in the 80s is accountability, and this teaches you the methodology of putting down on paper in black and white how you're accountable, what you're accountable for, and the bottom line. This is an explanation of net worth, of net value, of net outcome.
Okay. When I wrote something in college, I had an audience in mind, and I had an idea of what they knew. How much do you presume that somebody knows when they read that?
We presume that we presume that none of the individuals have had a background in finance or management, that we've put together a very simple format. fill in the numbers, out comes the answer.
As you fill in the numbers and out comes the answer, what do you get other than answers?
What you get is a thorough business. You're able to think through the entire process from start to finish. You come out with payback, you come out with a vocabulary, you come out with a business sense of handling the technical part of the laboratory.
Okay, good. Pause it for a
Do you
second.
like the answer from research?
Sign your course book.
We presume in the course book that the audience doesn't know anything about finance. And we've tried to put together a very brief analysis, very simple formulas to come up with accountability and with outcome. A good financial tool to justify to your administrator capital equipment acquisition.
Okay, fine. Change your framing, Gary. Tell me that same thing again. Make it shorter even if you can.
We presume that the chemists,
Take it from the top.
start all over again.
Yeah.
We presume in the course book that no one has any background at all. We presume that they...
It's all right. In finance, yeah.
Okay. We presumed when we wrote this module that the individuals reading it would have no background at all in finance, and we tried to put together a simple, straightforward format that teaches accountability and financial viability of the capital equipment acquisition.
Okay. Pause it for a second. I guess I don't know if you want to, I guess you don't want to say fancy.
Okay.
A personal story would really...
Leonard Lopez said,
One after you.
And you might, I'm sorry, you might want to give me years or
Okay.
something so that we know this is a pre-DRG or post-DRG story.
in 1981, when I worked for the hospital, the administrator called up one day and said, Bob, we need $1 million, and I need to know where we're going to find it before noon today. It's about 10:30 at the time. It's
I'm
amazing.
sorry, take that story from the top and tell it to me.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And
In 1981, the hospital administrator called one day in the pre-DRG days and said, Bob, we need $1 million before noon. It was 10:30 at the time, and I felt that that was a little bit of an unusual request. We looked at the standard problems. Let's raise the CBC by $10. That didn't work. We looked at a number of other things in order to provide the hospital with $1 million in revenue and came up with a stat charge and a phlebotomy charge, which later generated a couple of $1 million. Now we need to look at healthcare from a cost containment mode rather than a revenue generation mode.
okay, that story's a funny story,
It's
but
a
you're not
funny
telling
story.
that.
I'm not funny. I know.
I know you're not leaning towards me. You're
I know.
not telling me.
Habig, make faces for Christ's sake.
Tell me, it's like you know
Okay.
you're not going to believe the story.
Okay.
All right, you're-
Speaking of, you're not going to believe. No more pens. Okay, no, that's all right. No more pens, Leo. Anyway, the same guy. Back in 1981, the hospital administrator called me and said, Bob, we need $1 million before noon today. I thought that was a rather unusual request, but in order to balance the budget and go to the hospital board, we needed this additional money in about an hour and a half's period of time. We generated a phlebotomy charge and a stat charge in order to provide additional revenue. It was later in excess of $2 million for revenue. Now, costs are different. We're looking at cost containment as opposed to revenue enhancement.
Tell me about that was
The
terrible.
pen, I
Tell me
know,
what's
it's
the pen
just
story?
a shit. The pen story?
We're missing the point about revenue generation for the year. Right? We generated $2 million over a year.
We did. Oh, no, it was, we came up with the idea. Okay.
Okay. I've never heard. Tell me, God.
In 1981, the administrator was balancing the budget and called one morning and said, Bob, we need $1 million to balance the budget next year. And I said, gee, Leonard, $1 million in an hour and a half is a great deal of money to come up with in such a short period of time to balance our budget. And he said, well, you're creative, Bob. Figure out a way. I dreamed up ways of enhancing the budget, and we did come up with $1 million, and he got us lousy 10 the last time I was at the Plaza in New York.
All right, pause the tape a second.
Really?
Really, tell me in your best bar room style this story.
Okay.
So the guy called.
Well, my buddy, the administrator, calls one morning and says, Bob, we're $1 million short in the budget. Gee, I'm sorry to hear that. And he says, yes. He says, we need you to come up with a way of generating $1 million before noon today for next year's budget. In the days of revenue enhancement, you could either raise the CBC $10 or create a new spectacular charge. We chose to have a phlebotomy and stat charge for the hospital. We generated over $2 million over the next period of a year with this half-an-hour conversation. The interesting part of that was when we presented that to the finance committee, the finance director chastised me for ripping off the patients. 2 years later, the same finance director lauded me for my innovations in management. So within a 2-year period from 1981 to 1983, what was frowned upon by the head of finance was looked upon as an innovative sense and a new component to the hospital. One other innovative management analyses that we did was on marketing. I began some of the early marketing at the hospital, which was also frowned down upon because medical centers don't market. Many places thought that was too businesslike, too unprofessional, too unmedicine. And whether it's marketing or generating charges, innovation in hospitals is far past due. People need to be more creative. They need to have better analysis. They need to step back and to look at the overall hospital. They need to look at it as a business rather than something that provides appendectomies.
That's great.
And like you said, Ryan,
I like
you
that.
have to wrap it up.
I thought, well, one of the biggest changes in hospitals
Quiet,
is
please.
probably the biggest change in hospitals was they always felt they could be all things to all people, and now they're having to become business enterprises. And whether you're looking at marketing, you're looking at return on investment, whether you're looking at the cost of capital, hospitals are run more like businesses. Unfortunately for the hospitals, the most financially feasible is not always the only thing that needs to be done, and the laboratory needs to have a voice in providing a balanced level of services as opposed to the most financially feasible. The laboratory is one of the most envious positions because they can market services. They can provide a large spectrum, a huge menu, provide many, many things that other departments, because of the size of equipment and the technical needs of the staff, they can't take outside the hospital. A laboratory is one of the services they can take anywhere, and they can market anywhere, and they can do across the country as well as they can across the street.
Okay, good. Nice and tight, Gary.
Well, probably this question.
Okay, let me get to Bob's question in a second. You told me yesterday that there's an edge that the manager has when he goes to get funds that maybe some of the other departments don't have. Do you remember that conversation? Okay, tell me.
The edge the manager has is that when we look in terms of purchasing a piece of equipment, it's not only a cost-benefit analysis, there's patient care. And if a manager can prove there's an earlier discharge out of this, or an earlier identification and treatment of disease, or something for the patient that the physician hadn't considered in the diagnostic process, they have a patient care. You have patient care in addition to a financial analysis. So if you can say this is financially feasible and provides a better quality of patient care to meet your goals, then you've got it wrapped up.
Okay, get wide for me, Gary. Tell me the same
the laboratorian has the benefit that not only can they provide an economically feasible capital equipment purchase and new testing, but they can also provide a better quality of patient care. And when patient care becomes an important